Want to thank you for joining us for this 1 hour code breaker. As you get settled, a few reminders. Please use the Q&A section for any questions today, and remember to be constructive in any of those questions or comments to the presenters and to one another to ensure that we have a session that is productive. All of the questions will be saved for the end where Nick will do the Q&A. AIA California will submit one AIA HSW learning unit for those who complete the session live. And as always, the webinar content and additional resources will be available online shortly after the session. Today's webinar, which will focus on electrification and how to help address client concerns, is brought to you by Energy Code ACE. Again, it qualifies for one HSW learning unit for those watching live, which AIA California will report for you once you have finished the session in full. Now to introduce our presenter. Nick Brown is a certified energy analyst and on the board of directors of the California Association of Building Energy Consultants. He is a subject matter expert on the California Building Energy Efficiency Standards and teaches multiple classes sponsored by Energy Code ACE. He holds a BA in economics from Princeton University and an MBA in manufacturing from the University of Michigan. Nick remodeled his home in 2014 in a deep energy retrofit and has written and presented extensively on net zero buildings, high performance walls, and energy efficient buildings. Now on to today's presentation. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks to AIA California for having me today, where we're going to talking about electrification. You seeing that okay?
It looks great.
All right, great. Well, code breakers are a series of offerings from Energy Code ACE that are bite-sized pieces, hoping to lead you to our larger offerings, but also offering a really hot topic in a short delivery time frame. The Energy Code has a lot to say lately about electrification, so you're probably increasingly discussing these issues with your clients, maybe with your neighbors and family too. And so that's why we had the idea to create this topic. Worked extensively with Gina and the rest of the fantastic Energy Code ACE team on this, and excited to present it to you today. This is our maiden voyage. And we've got it organized like this. Oh, and you will get the slides. We'll post that near the end as well. I think it'll come by email from AIA California. But we're going to talk about the technologies. We're going to talk about the Energy Code and what it has to say about them, costs, as well as incentives that are available right now. Never have in my whole time in the industry, the incentives for an energy efficiency technology been like they are right now. So the reasons are there for you to do your electrification projects now before those funds dry up. Energy Code ACE, if you're not familiar with us, and hopefully by now most of you are, has its offerings organized into tools, training, and resources, all in an effort to make your interaction with the Energy Code a little bit smoother. Tools include Reference ACE, which is a keyword function, all the different Energy Code related documents in one place. The VCA, or Virtual Compliance Assistant, is an online system that walks you through non-residential prescriptive forms. Training is offerings like this, but we also have a wide range of different offerings, including self-studies, YouTube-style videos. We're working increasingly on those. And fact sheets fall under resources, and we'll reference a few of those today. There's our address. Encourage you to head over there for more information and to sign up for our longer offerings if maybe you find an area you're interested in. We're organized today in these areas: key drivers of electrification, how electric technologies work, will they work reliably, affordability, and we'll close with a quick case study in Climate Zone 12, where Rebecca is today, and it is very hot. And in this section, common questions from clients, those policy drivers, and benefits, because besides those incentive dollars that hopefully will encourage you to do electrification projects sooner rather than later, there are a lot of benefits to talk about when you talk with clients about electrification, and we'll cover some of those. So I bet these are some questions you're already getting from clients. What happens when the power goes out? Can the grid handle it? Will it be more expensive, either first costs or operating costs? Will I be happy with it? Because I really like cooking with gas. So first of all, an all-electric home electrifies these 4 end uses denoted by the orange arrows here. They're the stars of the all-electric show, but the other items are supporting cast members like solar panels, battery storage systems, LED lighting. So really, to electrify an existing home, these 4 end uses need to be converted from their traditional gas systems, a heat pump for HVAC, the dryer running on electricity instead of gas, induction or electric cooktops, and a heat pump water heater. Now, some of the drivers that are pushing electrification in California, I'm sure you're hearing a lot about this. CARB's scoping plan includes the phase out of sale of gas appliances by 2030. The CPUC has also eliminated subsidies for electric line extensions for mixed fuel new construction projects recently, and for gas line extension subsidies. And our energy code has heat pump, HVAC and water heating prescriptive standards, electric readiness required for new homes and multi-family dwelling units. So there's a lot of nudges towards electrification inside the 2022 edition of our energy code. And if you've heard customers, clients ask, yeah, but isn't the grid mostly natural gas anyway? The truth is no. You look at this chart, and on our way to 2045 emission-free electricity, that's the goal our legislature has committed us to. At 2020, we were at 60% just about emission-free electricity on our grid when you count renewables, hydroelectric, and nuclear, all emission-free sources of electricity. So already well on our way to that 100% emission-free electricity goal set for 2045. So when we have a grid like this, like we do in California, a cleaner grid equals cleaner buildings. This study from 2019 by E3 looked at the greenhouse gas or carbon emissions of mixed fuel houses compared to all electric versions of those same houses. And look at the pair of bars in 2020. The all-electric home has 45% lower greenhouse gas emissions, even when including the effects of refrigerant leakage and various details. And that's because the California grid is 59% clean energy already. And by 2030, as the grid continues to green, and eventually 2050, the electric portions of those bars shrink because the grid gets cleaner, while the gas portions of those bars are stuck in time. So I'm sure you can get to why it makes sense to build all electric today rather than committing these buildings we're working on today with those emissions from gas systems, when we know the difference in greenhouse gas emissions is this stark. Electric readiness also in the 2022 Energy Code restrictions, regulations for new single family and multifamily units. So if you install a gas system today, you're going to be required to plan for a future electric retrofit of that appliance. That means a space for it. It means a circuit. It means reserved breaker panel space. So this is a nudge towards the electric systems as well, built into our energy code. And this applies to clothes dryers, water heaters, furnaces, and gas cooktops, even the central gas dryers in multifamily buildings. And we have a fact sheet on that at energycodeace.com. There's a link to it there. Maybe the biggest benefit for you to sell with certain clients is the health benefits of going all electric. And we're only really seeing studies on this topic emerge over the last few years. This UCLA study referenced here found significant savings to the state health system by going all electric. More specifically on gas cooking, this research in Science Advances found the nitrogen dioxide emissions associated with cooking over gas stoves has a direct connection to childhood asthma and other respiratory diseases. We provided you with a link there. And I think, why do we focus on cooking so much when we talk about health benefits? Because it's inside our conditioned space. It's inside our living area. It's different when we're burning gas to heat water in our garage or our furnace up in our vented attic. But when it's in our living space, it has an even more direct connection to our health. So that's a big benefit. As we like to do in Energy Code Ace, we pause at the end of a section and let you put in the chat what you think the answer is. So which of these building systems have to use electricity to be considered all electric? I'm sure the E's are flying. All of them. And that's really where you unlock the full benefits of electrification. When you can go all electric, you can close the account with the gas company down. And if it's a new home, not even run the gas infrastructure to the house. All right, moving on now to how they work. Real quickly, just a few quick slides. And this gets at the question you might be getting, will my utility bills be higher by going all electric? Heat pump technologies, and we're talking about HVAC heat pump here, they take heat from the air around them, around the outdoor unit, rather than burning gas to directly create every BTU of heat. And they're 300% efficient by using this compressor cycle. They're in effect moving heat instead of generating all of it. Furthermore, the mini split heat pumps shown in this picture adjust the speed up and down according to the conditions in the space, which is a new paradigm in comfort. It's not so much of a on and off cycling as we're used to the HVAC systems we grew up with. In comparison, gas appliances, the federal government regulates these. The minimum efficiency is 80%. The most they get is about 95% for condensing gas furnaces. So here's where the 300% efficiency allows us to go all electric without driving up our utility bills. And in my modeling, the biggest utility cost savings are typically in HVAC to convert to all electric. What about water heating? Well, the same heat pump technology that's in your refrigerator and that we just talked about in HVAC is on the top of your water tank in a heat pump water heater. So they take heat from the surrounding air, use the compressor cycle to concentrate it in the water in the tank instead of burning fossil fuels to create every BTU. They can also be programmed so that they run when the sun is up and the energy on the grid is cleanest. Maybe you've got solar panels supplying the energy to that water heater, and they can coast from 4 to 9 p.m. if you set the program that way, keeping utility bills manageable. Gas storage water heaters are about 60% efficient. That's the tank type. Gas tankless ones, 80 to 95% efficient. So again, it's the 300% efficiency that helps keep utility bills manageable with these electric technologies. Let's turn to cooking now. answer that question, will I miss my gas cooktop? Well, I like to think about cousins and kids running around at Thanksgiving when I think about the cooktop. And they're going to be reaching their hands over the edge to see what smells so good up there on the stove. Well, if you've removed that pan, the induction cooktop will have sensed that and turned itself off. There also won't be a metal pan support there that's glowing red hot if you've been cooking on it for a while. So the heat dissipates more quickly in a induction or electric hardtop cooktop. So the safety factor is really there. It's also a lot easier to clean with the smooth surface than all the indentations in a gas cooktop. Superior control, boils water faster. You know, there's a lot of benefits to induction cooking. I know we've learned to love it. And if you want to talk numbers, gas cooktops are only 40% efficient. The rest of the heat they create is lost to the air around the pot or pan. Electric resistance cooktops deliver about 74% of the energy put into them, and induction cooktops 90%. Back to the indoor air quality now. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but this study referenced here directly measured nitrogen dioxide emissions when cooking over gas and propane stoves shown here compared to electric and induction stoves. You see there's no bar for induction and coil electric cooking because they just don't create nitrogen dioxides. That's a function of combustion of gases, of fossil fuels, and it is directly linked to childhood asthma and other respiratory conditions. To me, one of the most important benefits we can cite when talking to clients about electrification. And cars, why are we talking cars? EVs are an optional part of what I would say is a winning formula for electric homes, especially together with solar panels, which are required on all new homes now in California. We ensure access to EV charging through our CalGreen code. And if you want to talk efficiency of EVs, these are some interesting stats to cite with clients. EVs are more efficient than gas cars in terms of the amount of energy we put into them and the amount they transfer to the wheels, 65% on average for EVs. Another 22% is recovered through regenerative braking. So on average, they convert 87% of the energy we put in them to road miles. Gas cars, on the other hand, produce a lot of waste heat and only convert 16 to 25% of the energy present in that fossil fuel to the wheels. Let's check your understanding again, and this is a vote for your favorite. What do you think? Your favorite benefits of heat pump and electric appliances? All right, I'll let you guys monitor the chat yourselves and keep moving here on to reliability. This is a big question we get. And let's start with the question of, can the grid handle it? I know when I teach classes on electrification, I get this a lot. And the way we're thinking about it with this slide is the grid's designed to manage peak demand. That is, what's the most amount of electricity that's going to be needed over the course of the year with a safety margin. We're going to reserve that amount of power for our system. We're going to build our infrastructure out accordingly. And what we've found in studies recently is that although it's intuitive to think all electric homes are going to use more power than gas homes, only makes sense, right? And that's true. But we find all electric neighborhoods don't have a significantly higher peak usage than mixed fuel homes. What we're showing on the chart here to back this up is this is a year's worth of electricity use. The blue bars are the all-electric neighborhood equipped with solar panels. The red bars are the mixed fuel neighborhood built nearby. This was a Fontana project. And of course, the peak is in the middle of summer, right? In the middle of this chart are the highest bars, but the highest blue bar, all electric, is barely higher than the highest red bar. Now, if you switch to the far left side or the far right side of the chart, it's obvious the all-electric homes are using a lot more electricity than the mixed fuel homes, because the mixed fuel ones are using gas for heating and water heating during that period. But the grid doesn't have to be upgraded to handle that, because those peaks fall below that summer peak. What if the power goes out? The public safety power shutoff events, right? This emerged, a few years ago with some of the natural disasters we faced. The utilities have all been working hard with grid hardening efforts, including metal power poles like shown here, cutting away overgrown plants, undergrounding, many different efforts. And this will continue as we continue to confront these difficult extreme weather events. But the grid isn't static. And when I get this question about can the grid handle it, I often get the feeling that the person asking it thinks we're going to use the current grid to be 100% emission-free electricity in 2045. And that's not the case. Our utilities are continuing to manage their generation and transmission assets, including especially batteries. And I wanted to share these data from just recently with you. On April 30th, we're looking at the day's mix of generation here for April 30th, 2024, where California set a record for 7 gigawatts of power supplied by batteries. And you see that in green at about 4 or 5 p.m. on the right side of your screen. The big part in yellow, of course, is our solar generation. So you can see that when we wake up and when we hit midnight and this chart starts, the sun's not up and we're generating from a mix of various assets. And then as the sun comes up, some of those other generating facilities can ramp down, the sun can take over, right? And then as we reach that late day peak, that's such a challenge for our grid operators, the battery kicked in and supplied 7 gigawatts. It had just set a record of 6 gigawatts just weeks earlier. So the world of batteries is a huge change to our grid. They have a huge role to play in supporting solar and wind and other renewable energy on our grid, and will continue to grow. Also wanted to cover batteries from a standpoint of resiliency. Our energy code now requires new homes to be built battery ready, as shown in this diagram here. And really the best way to ensure protection against blackouts, natural disasters, power outages is to pair a battery and a solar system with an all-electric home. Fossil fuel generators really aren't capable of everything that a solar and battery all-electric home is. And emerging now, just starting to, is the ability to back up homes with our vehicles. A Ford F-150 Lightning has a battery that's 7 to 10 times the size of a typical residential battery storage system. And so they promise to be another support to our grid and to our homes for when we're concerned about power outages. And this contractor posted in this anecdote that they were powering 2 houses worth of fridges and even an exotic fish aquarium. And after 6 hours, still had most of his battery. Again, an emerging area. A lot of people too don't realize that modern gas appliances have electric components to them, either ignition or controls that mean they won't function in the case of a blackout anyway. Your grandmother's old electric range may function, but modern gas appliances typically don't when there is a power outage. So that concept that having some gas appliances is more resilient than an all-electric appliance may be a fallacy. All right, let's move on to affordability because you can't treat any topic without covering money. This study by NBI looked at the cost of building, the first cost of building all-electric homes, and found upfront savings of roughly $8,000 a home, most of which was avoiding the gas infrastructure to the lot. And of course, our energy code adds electric readiness, and with the elimination of subsidies for gas line extensions, provide an additional nudge in that cost-saving area. In terms of operating costs, utility costs, will it be more expensive? This, I'm sorry, is also the first cost this E3 study looked at, and it found lower first cost to build these homes in 4 different climate zones, single family and multifamily, than building a mixed fuel, contrary to what a lot of people might still think. A lot of that being the gas infrastructure savings. This study looked at utility costs done by Peninsula Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And there you see CO2 impact going all electric, that 40% savings, just like we saw in the prior bar chart. I like to say for soundbite purposes, you basically cut your greenhouse gas emissions in half when you go all electric compared to mixed fuel. And bill savings of $30 to $40 a month. Now, we sometimes run up against electrical infrastructure constraints when we electrify buildings. Here are some strategies that can keep the costs and the need for those infrastructure upgrades from happening. Load sharing devices put 2 different systems on a single circuit. They need to be, of course, systems that are unlikely to need to run at the same time, but that could be an EV charger and a clothes dryer, for instance. New to the market, these 120-volt heat pump water heaters cut the amount of power by 1/4 compared to the standard 240-volt 30-amp heat pump water heaters. I've got one running my house right now. It works great. Combination washer dryers, especially the type that is a heat pump, doesn't require a vent to the outside. That can also reduce the amount of panel space needed for laundry. Of course, the envelope is always worth investing in. They make meter collars now to allow for direct tie-in of the PV instead of taking up space in the panel. And you don't need the largest EV charger you can fit. Studies find you can put in a reasonable size EV charger, cover all your mileage just fine, and leave room for those other needs. And the Watt Diet calculator, which we link to here, is a useful tool for you to put in your plans for the all-electric home you're planning, and it will calculate the size panel you need. So I encourage you to get more knowledgeable about meter sizing, talk to your electrical engineers and understand this better, because there are a lot of techniques to make what you have work. I wanted to point out where you can go for more information. Localenergycodes.com is your one-stop shop for REACH codes, but it also has resources on decarbonization shown here, including some zero emission guides to all electric and that sort of thing. Also incentive links here, including switches on. And whereas in the past, incentives often were limited to one, now they're being allowed to stack on top of each other, especially the state incentives and the federal IRA incentives. There's no restriction against taking both. And so electrifying an existing home can easily add up to $17,000 in incentives. So I encourage you to look into that if you haven't already. One more check your understanding question. What makes all electric homes lower cost? I'm sure your answers are streaming in, all of the above. Did I make these too easy? All right, I'm excited. We're going to have plenty of room for discussion here at the end. Let me just close with a case study. And this came from the Quebec conference last year, where Brian Selby looked at this sample project, 1,410 square foot new home in climate zone 12. And he looked at what it would take to get it to comply with the energy code most cost effectively, mixed fuel versus all electric. And so here are some of the key features. The gas design complied, as you can see by the positive compliance margins here, but it required upgrades shown in red, rigid foam walls, QII HERS verification, which is prescriptive storage, but standard, but does cost money, a battery storage system, an upgraded HVAC system, upgraded attics, and an upgraded water heater. The all-electric version also complied with the energy code without the need for those upgrades. And this is what I see on projects these days. Energy code compliance is simplified by all electric designs, and there's money savings when you can simplify energy code compliance. So the California Energy Code now favors all electric designs over gas. What do you think it takes to build with gas today? All of those. I'm getting predictable, aren't I? But hopefully the message is sinking in. So what do you think? Do you feel a little more comfortable talking to clients about electrification? It doesn't have to be controversial. Hopefully some of these points equip you to have those conversations in a way that's a little easier. And let's take a look at what's in the Q&A now. How's this work with school buildings? Thanks, Deborah. Yeah, this topic applies to all different occupancies, unlike many of our Energy Code ACE presentations. You can build a school building all electric. You need heat pump water heaters. You need heat pumps for space conditioning. You need electric cooking if you have it there. Electric laundry facilities. So I think the concepts to talk to your school clients are the same. Would you have to put a heat pump in every room? You know, you want to condition every room in a building, but that can be done with a ducted or a ductless system. If it's a ductless system like we showed in the HVAC portion, yeah, you'd have an indoor unit in each room. If you choose a ducted version of a mini split, though, you can do that with a single fan coil and a duct system. Can you address the efficiency of induction versus standard electric cooktops? Yeah, as you saw in the efficiency in that slide, the efficiency is slightly better for induction compared to standard electric. I believe the amount of power required to power those is similar though. And cook time will be quicker with induction. It's much more powerful to boil water and reach temperature. A lot of individuals aren't able to purchase homes in the state. Landlords don't have a lot of incentive to upgrade their homes for people who rent when it doesn't benefit the owner directly. What are your recommendations for renters who don't have the autonomy to upgrade their homes or live with more energy efficient features? Well, that's a tough one, the split incentive problem, where the incentive of the occupant may be different than the incentive of the building owner. But there's significant incentives for that building owner to electrify homes today. Hopefully that message gets out through architects like her online here today. There are things that individual renters can do. They can install some of these electric systems. They may need permission of their building owner, of course, but an electric or induction cooktop, quite possible, assuming there's panel space. Certainly the dryer. But yeah, there are challenges there. On commercial projects, are there resources available to help make the case to the client? Well, like I said, I think these concepts certainly apply whether your projects are commercial or residential. Commercial kitchens, yeah, that's someone's livelihood there. If they're running a restaurant or something, it tends to be an additional conversation to have. But I think the fact that most of the heat is lost when cooking over gas, and you've got your chefs breathing those combustion gases all day long, should be compelling to a lot of restaurant and commercial kitchen owners. There are heat pump pool heaters as well. So even pools are electrifiable. There's research for us all to do to get comfortable with some of those fringe technologies like pool heaters, but we're learning, and the energy code's about to give us some guidance on that too. A plan for waste. Okay, yeah, there's a lot to be made, and justifiably so, of the life cycle emissions of making a product, operating it, and disposing of it. And that's a fair question to make. Studies show, however, that even because the savings during the operations stage of the cycle are so great, they outweigh the cost of and the emissions associated with building it and at end of life. But encourage you to seek out studies on that so you can speak intelligently about it. Thanks, Dave. Some resources for renters. Are there limits on heat pump systems? Issues with them being able to meet demand of large electrical buildings with high cooling demands? I don't think so, Matt, because if you've got air conditioners serving those same buildings, they need to be the same tonnage as the heat pumps, assuming it's a cooling determined capacity for that HVAC system. If it's heating that's the larger load, heating rather than cooling, then replacing a gas furnace system in a building might require 2 or more heat pumps. But it's entirely doable. No issues there. Any concerns with potential equipment, appliance, supply chain strains? I haven't heard of any. The heat pump manufacturers all got together on a stage last year with the CEC and said, we are committed to meeting these heat pump and heat pump water heater production goals. We're capable of it. We're focused on it. I've heard some anecdotes about slow shipping on induction cooktops, but I don't think they're widespread at all. So no, I don't know of any supply chain strains. Commercial buildings under the CEC no longer evade energy upgrades during tenant renovations. Well, it's certainly true that commercial and retail buildings being remodeled trigger the energy code. But it's also true that in general, portions of the building that aren't part of your scope, you're not going to be required to upgrade them. So hopefully that answers that. Are there any systems that combine in-home cooling and using the waste heat to act as a pool heater? Yeah, Kenneth, there's a ton of opportunities for waste heat. We've been thinking about them a lot lately in terms of heat pump water heaters, which produce cool outlet air. What could you use that cool outlet air for? Heat pump water heaters also benefit from warm inlet air. Where could you get that warm inlet air from? Maybe the refrigerator. So there's a lot of room for innovation, I think, in using waste heat as you incorporate more and more heat pumps. Large multifamily developers need to see more case studies and cost savings. Fair to justify induction cookings on 100+ units. I know Dave Entner may chime in on that. He's got a case study book with net zero buildings. I wonder if you have one you can quote there on with induction kitchens and 100+ units. But there's a lot of all electric multifamily building already happening around the state. I'm thinking of buildings by home builders like Meritage and City Ventures are doing a lot of it. I know I'm working on a lot of projects like that, National Core. So it's not a fringe outlier approach to building these days. I hear HVAC heat pumps can have noise vibration issues, especially when heating. Anything need to be done differently? Well, that's probably a good question to talk to your HVAC sub about. There's certainly noise dampening pads that are installed when heat pumps are put on racks on the side of buildings. But look, it's the same technology as your air conditioner. It's just running in two directions. So let's not make it out to be anything more exotic than it is. People love their gas cooktops because of the immediate responsibility to raise or lower the heat. Does induction offer that? Yes, it absolutely does. I'm here to tell you. I cook my oats on 3 and my rice on 4, and I get the iron skillet hot in a flash, sear my steaks. I've been very happy with induction cooking, and I've been doing it since 2015. You know, they make induction cooking hob rentals at all the IOUs. You might try checking one out, although realize those are lower profile, lower power than the full scale units. How many years do solar panels and batteries last? You know, you see 20 years on solar panels, 10+ years on batteries, typically quoted. Challenges in locating heat pump HVAC condensers and heat pump water heaters on tight sites with limited setbacks. Allison, true. You're going to have the same challenge locating an air conditioner condenser as a heat pump condenser, but true. And I would say many of the heat pump condensers that are inverter driven, the mini splits, we call them, have a suitcase profile to them that takes up less floor area than the more boxy cube shape air conditioner condensers. But heat pump water heaters fare. Corner of a garage is a great place for those. Outdoor closets are good places. Indoor closets are good places. Laundry rooms, but that is does take some planning. Kyle, plan for growth. Yeah, that's a question above my pay grade. But as I said, the utilities are continuing to evolve their suite of generating sources, their transmission systems, and it's not static. It's going to change a lot between now and 2045. It appears from studies I've read, it can be done. We can run our economy off renewable energy, but that's something, you know, I encourage you to read some of those studies for yourself and get comfortable with it. Any studies on impact of electrification on sale price of homes? Travis, not that I'm aware of. Maybe someone can put it in if they're aware. I previously worked on data center buildings, high electrical demand, use diesel generators. Are there alternatives for large scale industrial backup? Yeah, they're coming out with those. I have a friend, a family friend who is a showrunner, and they've been using large battery backup systems to power their apparatus out in the field. They film in Vancouver as an alternative to gas-powered generators. And this is a Netflix show, and they touted it recently in their newsletter. So much better than those loud, noisy fossil fuel generators out there on site when you're filming. Adding batteries to my existing solar panels. Deborah, should be doable, but that's why battery readiness is required for new homes in California now, because it's much simpler to do when you're remodeling. But you'd have to have a contractor come out and make sure he could find space and put in all those necessary components. Rebecca, anything on the chat you noticed that we should address? I think we're caught up on Q&A.
Yeah, I think there were a few just in the chat. I can read one here. If you are going to install solar to electrify your home, if you upgrade your roof, both the PV and roof will enjoy 30% of the rebate. This also applies to battery storage. You can save thousands of dollars if you do it together. If you do your roof before and install PVs later, only the PVs will be eligible for the rebate. Where could we find or apply for these rebates?
Well, if you're talking about solar battery rebates, those are the federal tax credit. And I took advantage of the up to $2,000 tax credit for when I installed my heat pump water heater last year. Just work with your accountant to account for them appropriately on your 1040 tax forms.
All right, another one is, and I think a few people have been commenting on this, but they asked, are you secure in the fact that the grid will be fully prepared for eventual total electric use? Will fossil fuels be totally phased out, and is that the goal?
Well, I am personally. I've read a bunch of studies, both at the national and the California level, that indicate that going to 100% clean electricity, now there's always going to be some gas, don't get me wrong, but is possible. It's possible cost effectively, and it's possible while creating jobs and improving health outcomes. That's what I believe personally. But it's something you'll have to get comfortable with yourself. Some of the studies include one out of Princeton, one out of Berkeley, the 2035 report. And they certainly indicate it's possible, but it's a big lift. This is a big transition on a human scale, and it's going to take building transmission lines, more solar and wind and batteries at a large scale. So it's not going to happen without concerted effort.
All right, another one from the chat is, do you have any information regarding how different cities in California are progressing on their way towards full electrification?
Different cities. No, I don't. I'm sure many cities have electrification of buildings as goals. And I'm sure it's different all over the state in terms of progress towards those goals. That's probably something for us all to focus on locally.
All right, that's from the chat, and then it looks like the Q&A has a few more populated as well.
Yeah, Allison asks about rebates. You're right that rebates aren't all at the utilities right now. That many of them are statewide programs like Energy Smart Homes that cover multiple IOU territories. And you're right, we don't have for instance, a solar rebate like we did in the early days. Generally, those rebates are put there to help spark, the change that needs to happen, and then they get phased out over time as it becomes more mainstream. I can say for a mainstream technology like heat pumps and heat pump water heaters and induction cooking to be incented at all is remarkable. We know these systems work. They're used all over the world. They're not fringy or new, and yet we can get significant incentive dollars in order to do it. To me, it seems like a remarkable window in time that I know I want to take advantage of as much as I can. Any challenges in abandoning, disconnecting existing gas connections? There might be, but I can tell you one anecdote. I called my local gas company and they came out and they removed the meter and capped the line. I didn't know what to expect. Is it statistically correct that only 1% of California building stock is electric? I don't know, Kyle, for sure, but I do know that if you look at the national building stock, it's something on the order of 20 or 30% that's all electric. There's whole parts of the country that are all electric, not well suited to gas. And so that should, look that up a little bit at EIA, the Energy Information Administration, for more information. Gas to heat pump water heater rebate. Yeah, there's one through Golden State rebates, I want to say, for $900 right now. The tech program that gave rebates of $3,100 for gas to heat pump water heaters may come back and get refunded. That was a remarkably generous incentive that until recently was available all over the state. And thanks, Dave, for the color commentary in the chat.
All right, it looks like you have answered all the questions. Nick, thank you so, so, so much. We appreciate it. Dave also, and all of the resources that folks are throwing around in the chat. Thank you so very much. I did just post the slides from today, as we mentioned earlier. And if there are any questions, should we direct them directly to Energy Code ACE, Nick, or do you have a special email that we should have?
Well, I did want to lead everyone to Energy Code ACE other offerings to close here. The single family all electric zero net carbon design code breaker, the multifamily version, the non-residential version, longer offerings on solar and battery, the classes for architects, both single family and non-res, the fact sheets online, fantastic, including these two focused on electrification. And we encourage you to create an account. We'll let you know when other offerings come up. We've got a survey here that we'd love you to fill out and give us feedback, especially since this was our first offering of this new topic. And there you see my contact information as well as those of my managers of the program. If you want to get more information and just let us know what you think, your opinion from working in the trenches every day.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. We appreciate it. I mean, the chat is just flying by right now with how many appreciative attendees that we had today. So, Nick, I appreciate it. Energy Code Ace, thank you so much. And we hope that you enjoy your days.
Thanks, Rebecca.